Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 10 of MORE-VILLE, Orville, the podcast that reviews the Orville. I'm your co-host, Michael, and I'm joined by G.I. Jolie.
Hello. I'm here to talk about the Orville 2.
Woo! And Champ Ian.
How you doing, guys? Oh my goodness, this is embarrassing. I thought we were doing our Stranger Things podcast today, and I brought the wrong notes. So I'll see. I'll try my best. I think
right.
I've seen a little Orville here and there.
Oh.
Well, you're also our ever-reliable recapper, so I hope you remember these episodes from when you watched them, 4 years ago.
4 years ago, yes.
Because I barely remember them
Jolie
4
did a
days ago.
fantastic job on the last episode, but I will do my best this one here. I believe that the next episode that we're going to be talking about today is called Firestorm.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Firestorm. And from what I recall of this episode, there is some sort of calamity in engineering. Something blows up, there's a fire, a bit of a bulkhead falls out of the ceiling and lands on somebody.
Yes.
So they call up to the bridge, help us, we need somebody really, really strong to come down here and lift this bulkhead off this person. So Katan is enlisted to run down to engineering and basically save this person's life. So she runs down to engineering, and there's a wall of flame in between her and this struggling crewman, and she freezes. She can't get through the flames, and as a result, this crew member dies. Now, that is the extent of this particular calamity, but it destroys Katan's sense of self-esteem and her confidence in her ability to do her job. And she blames herself for this, and she tenders her resignation because she doesn't feel as though she can properly be the chief of security on a ship if she's too afraid to save someone's life. Captain Mercer denies her resignation, though, and he suggests instead that she try and figure out exactly why she's so fearful. So she talks to her parents. She gets on a Zoom call with her parents, one of whom... Well, Mike, you were just mentioning you were talking about you're watching the Jem'Hadar episode of Deep Space Nine.
Yes.
Which is where her mother, you might have seen, she might have looked familiar. She was the female Jem'Hadar.
Oh, okay.
In that particular episode.
Really? I was like, where have I seen her before?
Portrayed by Molly Hagan.
Wow,
that's her.
Okay.
And her father, who everyone recognizes from his most famous role as the garbage man number 1 in The Burbs, starring Tom Hanks.
Yes.
Which I own on Blu-ray.
Wait, what?
Of course. Who doesn't?
And he also had a minor role as, something sci-fi related. Oh, yes, the Johnny Cab driver in Total Recall.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So they have a little conversation.
Jokes.
They have a little conversation, and it turns out that when she was a baby, there was a kitchen fire, and she woke everybody up, and everyone lived happily ever after. And her parents never told her about this because it was too traumatic, and they could never bring it up, even though they show no signs of any sort of distress as they're telling her this little story. Anyway, later on, things start going weird on the Orville. There's a spooky clown that runs around chasing people. There's a giant spider that eats somebody. I forget exactly who the spider eats.
Gordon Malloy?
Malloy? Is it Malloy?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that tracks.
Yeah.
There's this weird stuff going on. Claire Finn goes crazy and straps her down to an operating table and wants to do some exploratory medieval surgery. Isaac goes crazy and tries to kill her. But then we realize that this isn't actually happening. It is just a simulation, but the crew is powerless to prevent it because Katan has enacted some sort of special order that not even the captain can supersede, that nobody can stop her from doing the simulation. And what's more, she doesn't realize that it's a simulation because she's had a short-term memory wipe before going into the holodeck, or whatever they call a holodeck on the Orville. But at the end of the day, she gets through this little trial that I think Isaac sets up the trial for her. And it turns out that she's been subjected to essentially a list of the crew's fears. And she rises to the challenge, and yeah, that's about it. I think there's some question as to whether or not she's going to get in trouble for using this special order, but the captain is so impressed at how well she handled it that he just lets it slide. And then we're all good. She gets her confidence back, and the Orville flies off happily ever after.
So yeah, I'm just going to start off by saying that for some reason this batch of 3 episodes I actually don't remember as well as the previous 9, and I don't know what reason that is, but the other ones I felt like I watched yesterday. These ones I only vaguely remember, and I don't know why, because I technically watched them more recently, right? But anyway, even though this episode features my favorite character on the show, it was probably my least favorite so far. I thought it was fine, but I think one of the biggest problems I had is that you kind of are told, the audience is told what's going on, 2/3 of the way through, or 3/4. So even after you find out she's in the simulation, they still go another full segment, right? Where she doesn't know. So I think it would have been a little bit better to keep that as a very, very last-minute twist at the end.
I disagree with you there. I'll talk about this later. I have my own thoughts on this.
Okay. But I also thought that the phobias, some of the phobias were great. The giant spider wasn't a huge fan of. To me, the reason the giant spider didn't work is because it wasn't scary, because it just looked like a big phony CGI spider. If it was like a million real spiders crawling on a person, then I would have actually been scared, right?
Oh, like the scene where they're talking and discussing what is actually happening, and there's a million tarantulas.
Okay, yes, I forgot about that. See, that was actually creepier. That was like, oh shit, that was like me, I'm eating cereal and I look up at the ceiling to make sure there's not a spider on the ceiling falling into my cereal. But the giant spider did nothing for me. The clown did nothing for me, but I'm sure if you're, what's the word when you have a fear of clowns? Jolie and Thavon,
I don't know what the name is, but I have it, and I hate it.
I figured you hated that part. But anyway,
Do you really?
Yeah.
I've never personally taken like fear of clowns seriously. I've always just thought that people that said they were afraid of clowns just said it to be funny.
No, I've seen Jolie like avert her eyes from a TV when a cartoon Joker is on the screen.
Really?
Yeah, like she can't watch.
Yeah.
So have you ever seen a Batman movie? Or are you unable to watch those?
It's hard to see Heath Ledger in the makeup. It's mostly the makeup. Something about the illusion of good and evil.
I gotcha.
And then exacerbated by it and the devouring of children.
Okay.
But mostly pretty much based on an experience I had as a child at the Western Fair.
Oh, all right.
Yes. Followed by a clown. You know how adults just kind of like latch on to a kid and they think it's really funny and it's really not? Yeah, that wasn't the greatest. I mean, as an adult, I was walking on the riverfront with a friend, and I like 100 yards away, there's a clown, and I just run the other way. And then Scott was like, "Where did you go?" I was like, "Did you not see the clown?" Anyway, yeah. Okay, so clown
back
phobia.
to the episode. Back to the episode. The clown. It was a little weak, but it was also our introduction to the fact that things are going weird. So
right.
I think it was a good entry point to the entire thing.
Also, the fact that they go and look at the surveillance footage of the ship.
Right.
And you don't expect the clown to show up in the footage, but he's there. It's there.
Absolutely. When that was a bit of a twist. It was like, what is? Oh, really?
Yeah.
You pause because it was completely out of left field that this is actually a thing.
Yeah, and they see it, and then they go chasing it. They're like, well, I guess she isn't seeing stuff. There's no way that this thing could have, like, how did it get on board? Let's go hunt it. Boardus.
Yeah.
Clown. No fear. I love it.
Well, the other thing too with the clown, I mean, seeing a clown in a brightly lit hallway standing there, to me felt like The Shining, right? Like Stanley Kubrick doing horror in broad, brightly lit rooms. So and then when it starts running towards you, okay, that was a little scary. When I say you, I mean the viewer. But other than that, I don't know. So, Ian, what were your feelings? Did you think it was a good episode?
I liked a lot of what this episode did, but I didn't like the structure of this episode. And I think it's interesting that you said that you thought the reveal came too early.
Okay.
Personally, I thought the reveal came a little bit too late. Now, there's also some issues that I have with how the reveal kind of came to light and why everything happened the way that it did. I don't like the fact that Katan used this special order.
Yeah.
And that's what hamstrung everyone, and they're all worried, oh, is she going to freak out in there? Is she going to have whatever, an anxiety attack or something? It's really stressful for her right now, and that's their big concern. Whereas with a little bit more creativity, you could have had a really compelling episode there. What you do, in my opinion, instead of having her invoke this special order, you have the fire, like the incident in engineering earlier, cause some sort of damage to the holodeck that they were unaware of.
Yes.
You still put her in there with the memory wipe because that's necessary, A, for the plot, and B, for her to react the way that she wants to react. But instead, you have the crew watching her, and then, oh no, suddenly there's no communication. And suddenly they can't get through the door. And to make it really tense, now the holodeck safeties are off too. So if she dies in there, she dies in real life. Now you have a reason to try and get her out. You have a reason to be worried that she's in there. And then you can have maybe things that they're doing, like pounding on the door. Maybe she hears that, and maybe that freaks her out even more because she has no idea where this pounding's coming from.
Yes.
I'm reminded of one of my favorite TNG episodes, Remember Me? That's Gates McFadden enacting Tour de Force, where she's on the ship by herself for half of the episode. And they have the reveal where she's in an alternate universe fairly early in the episode. And then we go back and forth between the real Enterprise and Dr. Crusher's reality. And we see how both teams are working to try and figure this solution, to figure out a solution for what's going on. And I think that something like that would have worked really well here, where we learn early on, maybe halfway through, that she's actually in a holodeck, but we have reason for them not being able to get her out beyond this this order that, oh, the captain, his hands are tied because she's given this order, despite the fact that Katan herself defied the orders of a fleet admiral a few episodes earlier to save the captain. So why wouldn't he turn about and do the same thing, right? So that's my issue with how this episode's written, and it just sort of speaks to, I think, Seth MacFarlane's lack of experience in writing a sci-fi television show.
Well, funny enough, he didn't actually write this one, but he probably had a hand in like guiding it. So yeah, you're right. He should have. That's something he could have caught and like revised if he wanted to, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you know what's funny is I remember that episode of Next TNG, and I thought the same thing. Was that I thought the reveal came way too early. I would have I would have liked them to have held out until almost the end. You know, but whatever. That's fine.
I think you came up with like a really great solution to the problem of this episode, and maybe it would have been a better reason. It would have made me like the episode a little bit more. For me, I just take umbrage with like the existence of the entire episode.
Gotcha.
I feel like we've already set up Katan's insecurities. Like, we already know that she's insecure, and I thought she was kind of like over this.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, so they did that very early on to help build her character out. So when this whole thing happens, and she avoids the fire, and she allows Lieutenant Payne to die, or she doesn't allow him to, you know what I mean? Her hesitancy spells death. It just seemed like it kind of did a disservice to her character. Like,
yeah, I could see that. I could see that. It's as though they keep trying to find ways to weaken her in ways.
Yeah, and like, I know in season 2 they do it again. They physically we're not talking about that now, but they do it again where they test the character or they actually literally physically weaken her. And it's like, what the heck? Like, don't you have other trials that you can put a super strong being through? This one, it's they went with like things that would affect you psychologically. Then why? I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts, and not all of them fit together. They're just as well written as the actual episode itself. So, yeah.
I just had something click into my brain. Something else that about this episode that bugged me. Like at the very, very end, when she has to escape the Orville in a shuttle, and then there's a fire at the shuttle bay door, and she has to fly through it. Like, she's in a shuttle now. Is she really going to be that scared of a fire that's outside? I don't know.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Now, before we say anything else, can I reference my favorite gag for the show?
Absolutely.
So my favorite gag for the show, if everyone remembers, was when at the beginning of the episode they were doing something else in the... It's not called the holodeck. What is it called in this?
I think they call it a simulator.
Okay. And help me out with the names. Malloy and Lamar show up, and they're dressed up like 17th century. No, it wasn't 17th century. Like, they're going to do like a duel. They have like the white wigs on and the little pistols. And they're like, oh, we can come back later. And then they leave. But then, but the even funnier is like a few minutes later when Bortus shows up and he's like, am I early? That is the best. I love that. So another thing, we usually talk about a character every episode, but we kind of run out of characters. So I was going to suggest, do you guys want to talk about the ship itself, the Orville, for a few minutes and the design?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there is, Julie, you might know this because you're you know a lot about art and architecture, but is there a name for the type of style that was used for the TNG Enterprise? Like the
interior hallways?
Yeah, like the curves of the bridge and the way that the computer consoles are and the wood and everything. I don't know what that is, but if you compare it
mid-century modern.
Okay, I don't know. Yeah, okay, maybe that's it.
Yeah, it's like when you use like a lot of mid-century modern replicates natural materials, but also the look and shape and feel of the Art Nouveau style. So, which is like expressive curves and rounded shapes.
Right. Well, when I was a little kid, I did like it, but I didn't appreciate it until I saw Deep Space Nine, then later the bridge for Voyager. And I didn't like the bridge for Voyager, and I didn't know why. I'm like, what is wrong with this? And I realized that whole aesthetic went out the window. But with the Orville, I think they've completely brought it back. And you can, like, again, when they're in their ship, everything feels very welcoming. It's not militaristic. It's not like a submarine, like a World War II submarine, right? Also, the exterior of the ship, it's. I'm not saying I love the design, but it's not like anything I would have ever thought of, right? Like, usually with a spaceship, you have either a flying saucer or a rocket. With the Enterprise, the original, they combine those two ideas, right? With Millennium Falcon, it's a giant flying saucer with a little tiny rocket, right? But with the Orville, it's just they throw that out the window and they just use these weird curves and shapes to create this design that I don't think I've ever really seen before. And then they also apply that design to the shuttles as well. If you notice, the shuttles all have like a mini version of those what do you call those, not donut shapes, but kind of like donut shapes coming out the back of them, right, to show the propulsion. So I'm a huge fan of the design of the Orville. Ian, what about you?
I agree completely. It really does sort of tip its hat to the general vibe of TNG without ripping off a lot of TNG. Which it's easier, I think, to design the exterior of a spacecraft that looks different because the Enterprise is very iconic. The interior, I am very happy with the way they've made it look very distinctive, but to still sort of pay homage to that sort of wide open, free flowing, and the lighting as well. That the very bright. You're watching Deep Space Nine again, and the lighting there is completely different. Very dark. Very, of course, that works because they're on an old Cardassian space station.
Right.
But I do understand what you're talking about Voyager as well. Like, once we got to Voyager, it seemed as though they were just going for the sort of industrial set that you'd see in every sort of secondary spacecraft when TNG episode had some ship that you've never seen before and will never see again come up onto the screen. They would just build a bridge in 2 minutes and okay, there it is. And Voyager looked very much like that, and it looked cheap. But this looks like a lot of thought went into it, and it's hard to say like that it looks, realistic, right? Because these are spacecraft that, obviously don't exist, but it looks plausible that this could be, if we become a spacefaring civilization that moves beyond just a military, where you're going to have people up there that are living and living their lives and that sort of thing. Yeah, it seems as though that's the direction that could that they could go.
G.I. Jolie, are you a fan
of the design of the ship? Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just trying to look. I'm just trying to read a little bit more to see if there's any notes about like the inspiration, but I'm not finding anything. And mostly they wanted it to look like an organic sort of creature, because it's essentially, it's not, like you were saying earlier, it's not a military vessel. It's meant for space exploration, and thousands of people live on it. So
do we know how many people live on the Orville?
Hundreds of people live on the Orville.
but has it ever been said on the show itself? Because we all know it's 1,014 people that are on the Enterprise.
I don't know that we've heard it on the show, but it says here it's the home to a crew of 300 people. So yeah, and that's another reason why, like, I mean, we've said it here before. Places like the ship on Discovery, they seem almost not homey at all.
No.
Yeah, it's like, I'm going to go to my quarters, this dark hole. It just seems like there's like dark water leaking from the corners, and like all the beds are made of titanium, or
all the walls are painted gray.
Yeah.
It just seems inhospitable. But the Orville is like bright and carpeted and lush, and there's plants everywhere, and there's windows everywhere that look into space, but there's windows, and everything's lit well, and their rooms are really cool. The doctor's the deck where the doctor is, it's like it looks like it looks like they do medical stuff there, but it doesn't look sterile and clinical. I love it. Sorry, you were saying, Michael?
Well, no, I was also going to say the other interesting choice for this design is on the bridge. There's a big hallway right behind the captain and the first officer's chair, and then they also have another hallway, kind of on their version of 10 forward. Right now, as far as my limited knowledge of film sets go, one reason you'd never do that is because that takes up space, right? So if you have a 10-foot, 20-foot hallway, that means you're kind of wasting that space where you have to have extras walking through it and back and forth. Usually what you do is you'd put a doorway there that opens up into an elevator, or like a hallway goes behind the wall, so that you don't have to, as soon as you walk behind that wall, all you're seeing is wood, right? And like the, what's it called? Like the support beams that are holding up this cheap set. But in this case, by building that hallway, it's something that you always have to address by having extras back there. So I just think it's an interesting choice. So yeah, I don't know.
I like that it's open.
Right.
I mean, every bridge has an entrance off of the elevator. What do they call that on the Enterprise?
Yeah, what do they call it?
On the Enterprise?
Yeah,
they call it a turbo lift.
Yes,
That's it.
turbo
I was like, I know
lifting.
it has a non-Earth name.
Right. I forgot, man.
They're always beaming on there, or there's a turbo lift. But in this case, like Mike said, it's a giant open hallway. Mm-hmm. And I think it was a conscious decision. Like it appears as though, from what I'm reading, that it is a conscious decision in order to make the vessel appear to be more like a home.
Mm-hmm.
And they also notice, I'm glad you pointed that out, there is no transporting on Orville, right? They could have easily lifted that from Star Trek, but they didn't. So whenever they travel to another planet, they have to take a shuttle, which I think is interesting. Mm-hmm. Just something to think about.
Which gets them into trouble frequently. So
yes.
Good thing.
I think that was probably a conscious, I don't know if that was necessarily just to set it aside from the Star Trek universe, but not having that escape, it gives you more opportunities to write a dramatic scene. Right,
I agree. So, is there anything else to say about the episode Firestorm?
It's not one of the best.
Probably my least favorite so far. One of the weaker ones for sure. Again, like I barely even remembered seeing it. So,
but I mean, it's that Bortus walking into the whatever cargo bay and clown.
Yeah.
I'm instantly on the floor.
Yeah, there's still great moments. Absolutely, there's always great moments. I enjoy. That's the thing is, even if it's not a great episode, I still enjoy watching it. That's the difference.
Of course,
right?
Yeah. Could you imagine a Mocklin who's never seen a clown before is like, okay, I guess we're hunting this thing. Clown.
What was Bortus's fear again?
Oh, I don't remember.
Because they all had their own fears.
So Malloy's is surgery, and that's why Claire's. That's why Claire tying up Alara is part of it. Lots of spiders is. Oh God, I can't remember. Let's see.
I can't remember either. Jeez.
Bortus's fear is funny because he excuses himself from the room. When they bring it up, when they're talking, they're like, okay, so let's go through everyone's fears. He's like, excuse me, Captain. May I be excused? I'm feeling insecure right now. But I can't remember what his fear is.
Oh, you know what? I don't know if this gives a clue, but remember he also points out, he's like, by the way, Captain, I found an alligator in the cargo bay. An alligator? What's an alligator doing there? I don't know. Nevertheless, I've crushed it.
Maybe his is the alligator.
No, because I don't think that's it. I think it's something else, but I can't remember. Well, anyway.
It was being bested by a superior fighter.
Yes, that's it.
Specifically Isaac.
Yes,
in this case.
And that's why he had to leave the room. Right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay, so I guess that's all we have to say about Firestorm. Probably, again, maybe one of the more forgettable episodes, but still solid entertainment, right?
Absolutely.
All right. So, you can hear every episode of MORE-VILLE, Orville, wherever you can hear podcasts, right? Should we list them all, Jolie, or just let them figure it out on their own? Everywhere except Spotify.
I mean, if you use it, we're not going to judge you.
Yes.
We're to your face.
Yeah.
But
behind your back,
you can find us on iHeartRadio, on Apple Podcasts, on Stitcher, on that other one that rhymes with Shopify.
I'd recommend since you're listening to this episode, find the next episode right here where you found this one.
Yes.
Exactly. It'll be here.
There you go.
And it'll be here with all of the other ones.
If you're listening, you've already found us. True.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. If you don't know how to find podcasts, then you're not listening to us right now.
Yeah, and just in case you forget you forget how you got here, you can go to www.comicbooksyndicate.com and find this and all of the other episodes of MORE-VILLE, Orville, as well as all of our other fabulous podcast properties.
There you go. So until next week, there's more where that came from.